Tuesday. I am excited to have you here with me, for you to be hanging out with me. Um, just excited. Yeah, like just a beautiful day. And I'm looking forward to our conversation. Today, we're going to talk about something I think personally is quite interesting, and that is creating the brand of you. So, quick story. When I first started kind of getting out into the world, going full time with the business, and starting to meet new people, I was invited to participate in the beginnings of a group of women who were high growth entrepreneurs, who were trying to build high growth businesses, high net worth businesses, and things like that. And of course, I was not prepared at the time for this. I will say I was very young, whether I was very young in age or very young in mindset. I don't know. I was just young. And so the idea of being a part of that group of women was very, very intimidating to me. But I went. Like I went and I was there, and one of the first things that we kind of discussed and talked about was the fact that no matter what, and this is just a group of women, but we discussed the idea that we were the representatives of our business. And I totally rebelled against that. Like I super hardcore rebelled against the idea that I was the representative of my business. Like, no, I'm not. Like I am just the person who does the work. I'm just the person behind the scenes. I'm not the brand representative. Like I don't, no one needs to see me. Like, and this was 11 years ago, probably 10 years ago now. Maybe even 9, that this was happening, that this group was getting started. And it was just amazing to me that my mindset around being the person who people looked at and sought out as a person, that was just something I was not interested in. I was not interested in being the brand representative for my business. Now, 10 years later, the entire climate behind or around being a representative for your brand is so massively different. Now, mind you, I was doing digital marketing back then. Like I was doing what I do for a living. Now I was just not teaching it. I was doing it. And boy, oh boy, it is amazing to me that I, of course, am in the position now where I wish that I had, as they say, in euphemism or whatever is, plant the best day to plant a tree is today. And the best day to plant a tree was 10 years ago, but the next best day is today. And for me, in this moment, that's exactly how I feel about building a brand of Lindsay. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. And that's what we're going to be talking about going forward, is the idea that the time to do that was 10 years ago, but the best time to do it other than 10 years ago is right now. And so over the past several years, I've been trying to do that for myself. And I want to talk through what that means, because I think that as small business owners in particular, we really get into we get caught up on this idea of what it means to be the brand for our business, mostly because we live in a land of influencers. And so because we live in the land of influencers and that's what we see all the time, we have a very strong tendency to believe that as a small business owner, your job is to be like an influencer, like KB, who is this person on the internet who is millions of followers, and you're supposed to figure out how to be KB or how to be any number of other super famous Instagram or YouTube people. And I think, or TikTokers, and I think that what we need to do as small business owners, just like we need to do it with YouTube or any other media or LinkedIn or any other media that we are in, the goal of that media isn't to capture millions of views for any of us as small business owners. That's not the job. The job is to capture the few people that we would be missing if we were just having to be everywhere physically ourselves in person. And if we think of it that way, then the whole game changes. So when I'm making this video right now, I am not making this video for millions of people to consume. I am making this video for the 175 people who will actually see it. And instead of me trying to be out there doing all the things that are going to get me tens of thousands of followers and lots of, millions of views and subscribers and all those things, that's not the goal, because I'm running a business. I have a business that is not this. This is marketing, but the business is the business. And so, as the face of a brand, as the person who is the brand representative, your job isn't to be famous. Your job is to put out content that is going to be useful to people in a medium that is going to be useful to them in a timely fashion, so that they can actually get something out of the media that you're putting out there. Now, for most of us, the whole concept of that is still really jarring, because you're fighting with the idea of, like, how much of myself do I put out there? Do I use my personal Instagram account? Do I use my professional Instagram account? What do I do? And how do I keep everything separate? And I don't want to be one of those people who post my dinner, like all of those things. I hear them constantly from people. I hear them all the time from people who are like, I don't want to be on social media because I don't want to post my dinner, or I don't want to do, other things that are relatively ubiquitous for people who are the brand, that people who are not selling a product, they are selling themselves. And so if you are selling a product or service, if you are a business, if you're running a business, the whole ball game is different. So I want us to be thinking of this whole thing differently. And so when I say you are the brand, or that we need to be talking about you as the brand representative, I want us to think of that less like your job is to be a celebrity, and more like your job is to be a local spokesperson. Essentially, like, you're not meant to be worldwide famous. That's not the goal. The goal is for people who need to know who you are to know who you are. Like, people who need to see you to see you. That's the goal. The goal is to be present in the places where you need to be found in order to have people feel like they know, like, and trust you, so that they can make purchases from you, so that they can enjoy your content enough to think that they trust you and want to work with you for a service that you provide. That's the goal. So let's talk about how to get there, because there is a bit of a mixture of professional and personal that needs to happen, but it doesn't need to be some big messy thing where you don't know what to do, or you don't know what to say, and you're not sure how to bring those two things together. So the first thing you're going to do in order to make sure that you are really pulling together a professional brand that is going to get you where you want to go while still being a business person is to start out with a list. Now, this advice that I'm giving you works whether you are a person who has a business, which is what we are, or if you are listening to this and you're a side hustler, or if you are in the ideation phase and you're thinking that you might want to start a business, and you're thinking, how do I represent myself when I know that there's this other thing that I want to be doing? So we're going to be talking about how to do that, not how to be an influencer. That is a whole different ballgame. What we're going to be talking about is how to represent yourself well when you are kind of representing yourself and the brand at the same time. So first things first, you're going to write a list, and you're going to write a list out. And I want you to shoot for 30 things, 30, 40 items on this list. And it is going to be, let me make sure I'm getting all of them: your talents, skills, abilities, activities, any qualities, all of those things: talents, skills, abilities, qualities, and activities. Write a list. So what are the things that you do? Not just the things that you love, but what are the things that you do? What are the things that you are good at? So what are the things that you are naturally talented at? What are the skills that you have? Skills are things that you've learned, like things that you have learned how to do that you do well. Activities, qualities are like your attributes, your personal attributes. What are those things? So list those out, and you might want to break it out into kind of 5 different lists. So talents, skills, activities, qualities, and abilities, all of those things into a different list. So 5 different lists of 5, let's say. 5 different lists of 5. That's worked out all by itself. I didn't even try. So 5 different lists of 5 things, 5 attributes, 5 qualities, 5 skills, 5 abilities, 5 talents, 5, all of those things, 5 of each. And then I want you to look through that list and pull out your top 5. So of the 25 things that you listed, what are the top 5? Now, all 5 of those, you want to try to get some in, one in each category. But if you can't, if you come up with a list of activities and you're like, none of these are relevant to anything else, then you can leave those off. You can leave the activities off, but make sure you have about 5 of them. And then when you get those top 5 skills, abilities, attributes, those top 5 attributes, then what I want you to do is see if you can turn those top 5 into a sentence or two that is about you, right? So what are the list of things that are about you that you're like, this is what kind of defines Lindsay? Now, for me, I have many skills and abilities and talents and things like that. And so if I were going to be doing this for myself, which I actually am going to be doing in approximately 15 minutes, I'm going to be walking through this exercise with a group of people in a workshop. And if I were going to be doing that for myself, I know one of the activities that I would list is hiking, because I have recently gotten into hiking, and part of what makes the fact that I love hiking something that I would put on the list is because it is also paired with another attribute to tell kind of an interesting story, and that is that I have also been diagnosed with arthritis, and I have some sort of inflammatory condition that we have not figured out yet. Separate story. And so I am hiking sometimes through a lot of pain, and then sometimes not. Like sometimes I'm fine and sometimes I'm not. But I am hiking still. So I'm getting out there and trying to hike in all weather. Maybe not right now because there's a snowstorm coming in like 40 hours or 36 hours, something like that. But the idea is that I am getting out there and hiking. Now, hiking is also a good, activity for me to put on my list, because it also leans into a lot of my other things that I do, like talents that I have. Like I'm really high level navigation. I'm intuitive, so I can find my way around. That is also something that is useful for me in my business, but it's a part of who I am. And so if I think about who I am and how that applies to what I do, intuition is a big part of what I do, as is perseverance, which is hiking through pain is about perseverance. And so you want to think about what those things are. And then once you take that 5 and you kind of make a sentence out of it, you're going to then evolve an origin story. Now, I love the idea of doing an origin story, because I think that often as people, we think our origin story is like already been told. Like your origin story is that you were born like your parents and then you were birthed into the world, and whatever the story around that is your origin story. Except for that, that's not how any real origin story works, right? So an origin story is a story about how a person makes a transformation. So if you think about all of, we can think about any Marvel hero at all, hero or anti-hero, every single one of them has an origin story. The origin story for Iron Man isn't simply that he was born into a wealthy family and, go from there. Like he was second generation, engineer. That's not his origin story. His origin story is the story of him being in the desert and the whole thing and the bomb and the chest, and that was his origin story. So that story is a combination of his past, having been born into a wealthy family, having been born, kind of naturally into a family of engineers, tinkerers, and scientists, and having the background and the money to also be an arms dealer, having like all of these things coming together, including the fact that he was able to fast talk his way out of dying, that his skill level of his own personal skill level saved his own life. Like all of these things are what make Tony Stark, not just simply the fact that of who his parents were. His parentage isn't his origin story. His origin story starts when he got shrapnel in his heart. And so that's where the story of Iron Man comes from. And we need to be thinking about ourselves like that. Like Spider-Man's origin story isn't just that he was an orphan who lived with his aunt and uncle. It's that he was an orphan who lived with his aunt and uncle, was a high school student who got bitten by a radioactive spider, and then like had to have a whole secret life. That is an origin story. So we want to be thinking about this in that way. So what is the origin story for you getting into this line of work that you're doing? How did you get there? How does the things that you were before lead you into doing the thing that you do now? So that's the story, the part that has something to do with you. Now, you could, of course, tell an origin story about your company without talking about yourself. I have seen people do it. One of my favorite origin stories that does not do that is actually You Need a Budget. If you have never heard of You Need a Budget, just Google it. People call it YNAB, not W, YNAB, YNAB. And You Need a Budget has a fantastic origin story. And it was started by a young man he's like my age, but he was very young at the time. And he had debt and he was trying to pay off his debt, but none of the systems that he was learning for debt repayment were working for him and his family. He had goals. The story is actually really cool. It talks about a dog. It's a whole thing, right? He's got this really great origin story, and he puts his origin story, him and his wife, on his website, and it's a little cartoon, and it's great. Another origin story that you may have heard of, which is really good, is the Cane's origin story. Cane's Chicken Fingers, the restaurant. Raising Cane's is the full name of the restaurant, and that origin story is also really good. I'm sure that some version of it is the thing that's on the wall or the thing that's on the website, but it's a really great version of these are the series of events that led us to have this restaurant where we fry chicken and have French fries. It's not special, people. Like, I love Cane's. It's not special. But the origin story around it is part of what makes Cane's Cane's. And if you go to Cane's, because it's named after their dog, there are dogs everywhere in there. There's always some sort of dog stuffed animal, a dog on a shirt. There's the whole story of the original Cane and then all the baby Canes that came after the original Cane, because of course he's been passed away because his restaurant has been around for a while. All of that but the origin story is the part that I want you to pay attention to, is that although they don't need to, this chicken finger restaurant has a fantastic origin story that does indeed stick in the minds of the people who are going there, to the point where over the holiday season, they sell lots of paraphernalia around their origin story. Now, you as the brand representative are a part of your origin story, just like Tony Stark or Spider-Man or the guy from Raising Cane's. You can build, or Jesse Meacham from YNAB, you can build an origin story that covers all of the bits and pieces, mind you, of who you are and how you started your business, how you came to do the work that you're doing right now. That's the beginning of the brand. A lot of times we forget that the story matters. And when you're telling, or when you're creating a brand for yourself, you need to be thinking about it in terms of the story that you're telling. And then once you move past the story that you're telling, it's all about how you want to represent that. So the origin story is the beginning, and then everything else that comes behind that is representation. How do I want to represent it? What kind of platforms do I want to be on? What kind of presence do I want to have? But as long as you have a good origin story, you have a good foundation for your brand, you can stick to that content as you move forward on any platform that you're going to be on and with any networking that you do, because it'll make it easier for you to communicate who you are and what you do. Iron Man has the story that he gets to tell over and over and over again about who he is and how he came to be Iron Man. Essentially, you have the same thing. It's just that maybe you haven't taken the time to make a story out of it. So what I want to challenge you to do is to do just that, to take the time to make a story. And if you're interested in taking the time and making a story pretty much right now, I'm going to drop a link into the chat. And I would love to have you join us. We are going to be working through this right now at 6 p.m. in 9 minutes. We're going to be working through how to do this, how to create a story, how to talk about yourself in a meaningful fashion so that your origin story that you're saying out there, instead of being boring and having an elevator pitch, you're going to have an origin story that people are going to go, wow, that's great. And they'll remember it. And they'll remember why they know you when they see your picture on LinkedIn or when you come across their feed on Instagram. If you have a good origin story and you figure out a way to stick to it, it's going to make a big difference for your marketing. So, with that, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to go prep for my workshop that's in a few minutes. And I hope to see you there. And if I don't, it's not recorded. So you're just going to have to catch it the next time around. but, but thank you so much for hanging out with me this Tuesday. I appreciate it. For every one of you who watches in real time or afterwards, after the session is over, I always appreciate it and I never take it for granted. So thank you so much. And I will see you next Tuesday. Have a great week and stay warm and safe out there. Okay.